Okay, this is a quick guide on some advice on placement of your guards. Now, I've noticed a few things as I was raiding bases that I'm going to cover. The first one of is guards that are not facing the right way. Now, most people have not paid attention to this, but when you're actually placing guards, you can spin them. So if you think that the people are going to come from this direction, don't have them facing this way. They will not see the arrow coming. So, actually aim them in the direction that you expect your opponent to come from. Have them looking down hallways, things like that. That way they have a much better chance of taking out the raider. Now, the second point of this is guard paths. Now, if you go into this guard path, wherever you look, that is the way that your guard is going to look. So, if you go and run like this, back and forth, your guard is actually going to follow that. Then I can tell him to stand guard. If you watch, see how he's looking around? That was me doing that. He is now going to copy it. He's going to look in the direction. That means that I can actually have this guy watching the doorway from no matter what. He can run sideways. He can run backwards and forwards. All in all, this makes them much more lethal. You can have them stand guard or autocomplete, or you can personally go back and complete it. I recommend either stand guard mode or you completing it, because autocomplete will sometimes have them turn their backs on their enemies. Now, next up is know your guard. Now, the Marine is your default kind of guard that you get. He individually is not that tough. He's got a very slow firing gun. His basic default version isn't that big. If you do add some stuff to him like armor, it doesn't actually cover a lot of his body, just his centralized chest. So when you're using them, try to use them as more of an ambush, but also realize they're loud. So if you're going to use Marines or any of these guards, put them next to something that makes a lot of noise. This way it'll kind of cover up their gasping, grunting noises. So throw down some decorations like generators, the little spinny wheels, any of that to cover up that noise so they do not see it coming. Next up is your Warmonger. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have met this guy. Generally armored, his unarmored form is not that tough. He's just a big giant target without that armor. At the same time, he's really an ambush predator. You want to make sure this guy is at point blank ranges and looking at the entrance so that he does his beep attack. Don't have them 3/4 of the way across the room unless you're trying to distract the raider to a different trap. That said, when these come at you in numbers, it does get really frantic really fast. So be thinking about that close combat, heavy armor, and trying to distract them to the point that these guys can actually close the distance. Next up, you got your little Bombard guy here. Now this guy fires an actual bouncy grenade. It is very weird to get around. It's got a good long range to it. All in all, he's a good, he's a good mix for different character types like the Marines, because their direct fire and his lobbing fire can really throw off things. But he's really good to place up high where he can see the enemy, and as such, you can kind of get that ball rolling around. Now, it's also able to bounce, so this will surprise a lot of raiders when this thing comes bouncing around the corner or into an area that they thought they were safe from the direct fire nature of the Marine. So be thinking about that when you use them. Finally, we have the Hornet, and this thing a lot of people do not pay attention to. When they're making guard paths, it has the same controls as your little hovercraft here in build mode, meaning that you can fly. You can actually walk around. Let's say that's the raider there. I can actually watch him. I can sit there and fly around to make the path so that he actually surveys, instead of just having them fly in weird directions. This is going to give you a lot better coverage with these. It's going to make them get shot down a lot less. Then I simply hit complete, and you'll see him. He actually sits there, floats around, flies up into the air. Now you've got an actual aggressive target in the air that's able to move around better. This is going to just give you a much better kill count, because it's hard to hit one of these guys when they're actually in the air from a distance. If they're just sitting there floating in mid-air, the light crossbow is going to tear them to pieces. So you want to use these where they can use that mobility to stay out of the reach, preferably making enemies actually use up their ammo so that they don't have the ability to keep fighting the remainder of them. And with that, I hope that's a couple of good tips that will help you use these guys a little bit easier. And if you enjoyed this, make sure to like and subscribe.